for what matters most this Christmas. Plan ahead for 2021 with the Nottingham Building Society to take a step forward with your future finances. Look for your nearest branch today at thenottingham.com/branches.
You were there for the first year of the new arena. So
Yeah.
you were there at literally the start of an era.
Yes.
So I mean, we were thinking about that. So it's been, I guess technically that was 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
Nottingham. So I mean, we're going on 20 years here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes.
When you say it out loud, can you quite believe that?
I know.
I know.
And the funny thing is we have so many friends still living in London and Nottingham that we can just pick up the phone and call them. And we literally pick up where we left off. It's like no time has gone by at all, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that time flies by. I turn 30 next month, and I swear I was just 29 last January. But that I kind of had that ruined for me because my mum bought me a present. She bought me a mug that said "Happy 30th," and I had to break the news to her. I'm 29, not 30 yet. Which I didn't know how to take it. Whether either she's not told me something,
Unless you missed a year somewhere.
Yeah. Did I have? Was I like in a coma? Did I skip a year at school and no one dared tell me? Like, what's the deal?
Exactly.
That's cute. That's funny. I like that. That's funny.
So the only place to start with something like this is, where did ice hockey come into both of your lives? I assume Barry's is the traditional Canadian boy story. And then Candace, were you a fan before you met Barry, or did you have to get into ice hockey after meeting Barry?
Kind of a little bit of both, to be quite frank. My family was really, like, my immediate family weren't really big hockey fans. I mean, we lived through the Wayne Gretzky era here in Edmonton, so we have a huge history with the Edmonton Oilers and the dynasty. So of course, whether you were a hockey fan or not, you were drawn to watch them on telly. You were drawn to watch them win, and dynasty after dynasty, Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup. I remember when I think I was underage to go to the bar. So I would have been 17. And this was when the Oilers won again, another year. And I think this would have been 89, 90 or 90, 91. I can't remember.
It's already 4 cups later.
Yeah, 4 cups later, I guess. So I remember going to the bar with all my girlfriends, and the whole Oilers hockey team was in there celebrating with the Stanley Cup, and all the bartenders filled up the cup with champagne and passed it around the bar, pre-COVID days. And we all drank from the cup. I remember Grant Fuhrer handing me the cup, and I drank from it, and then I passed it on to Mark Messier and Wayne Gretzky, and who else was there? Yari Curry. I mean, all the greats. Amazing. So that was kind of my hockey, pre-hockey. And then as I got older, I mean, I would watch it on occasion. And then of course, when I met Barry, he brought me into the hockey world, but from a different perspective. So versus being on the side of being a fan, I was now kind of behind the scenes with the negotiations of contracts and agents, and talking with GMs and looking at their lifestyle, getting ready for a hockey game, prepping mentally, prepping physically. So it was a completely different perspective, if that answers your question.
It certainly does. So Barry, where did ice hockey come into your life originally then?
Actually, it wasn't. When I was young, I really didn't watch hockey. We grew up in a small town, so we would get hockey maybe every Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. So basically, Toronto was always my team until I got a little older, and then Edmonton, of course, and then I started following Edmonton. But it was always a part, like, you go out and skate and play shinny with the guys, but you never really played organized hockey till I was maybe 12 years old. 13 years old, and then started playing pee-wee and bantam, midget, and they just kept working my way. But long story short, I some scholarship offers right out of junior, because I played junior A tier 2. And then my dad passed away, so I didn't take, because I had a couple full rides, so I didn't take it, and then I didn't skate for 4 years. So after those 4 years, I was working, doing other things. And then there was a free agent camp, so I went to this free agent camp, and lo and behold, I got picked up by the Oilers at the free agent camp.
Which is unheard of, completely unheard of.
Doesn't happen very often,
No.
anyway. But so I went to that camp. The first 2 days, I was killing it. We was knocking it out of the park. And then, of course, I didn't train properly, didn't know how to train properly. So the third day, I was done. Like, I couldn't even lift my arms, couldn't lift my legs. The lactic acid started to build up, and I was done. So then, obviously, I got sent to Raleigh, North Carolina, and played there for a year, and just kept working my way up in the East Coast. And
Which was the East Coast Hockey League.
yeah, and basically from there, then I got to walk on to Hartford with the Whalers.
Which is, again, unusual.
Yeah, and then basically signed a contract with them.
And was the physical side of the game always something that you had going through those levels?
At first, no. At first, I was, I'd say I was kind of like that puppy dog, just pretty timid back in my younger days. I mean, I knew I was bigger and everything else and stronger, but I was always that timid guy. But then once I think I started, would have been probably just before junior. Well, even junior, I didn't do that much. But just towards the end of my junior, then I realized that, okay, this is what I'll be doing. And then when I came pro, I remember I scored my first goal, and the coach took me off to the side and gave me the old tap, and you're not here to score goals, Barry. I don't want to see that again.
Which is, I can't believe
so
that.
it's, yeah, but that was back in a different time, and there was 21 teams in NHL, and if you were a fighter, you were a fighter.
But he didn't start off as a fighter.
No.
Yeah.
You always hear that about Barry, but when you talk to Panthers, because I unfortunately never got to see you play, but when you talk to Panthers, they're like, he could play as well. He could play the game.
Yeah.
Obviously, that comes from where you started, like you were saying, like you didn't do that physical stuff initially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah.
Yeah. Barry has that good old-fashioned farm boy strength. So when guys were training at a young age, he was working on the farm. So that's where he got his strength from. So he didn't have the conventional training, so to speak.
True.
What's the like adrenaline rush difference between having a fight in ice hockey and scoring a goal?
Well, scoring a goal, you're not going to get your face bashed in.
Well, that's
start off with, I guess, right? I mean, a fight's a fight, right? And at the end of the day, you're throwing punches, so you could give one, and you can just as easily take one. It happens that fast. So you're nervous. I'm sure you've talked to a lot of other guys who've fought before, but if you're not nervous, probably you're not quite ready, unless you're a Semenko. But I'm sure even those guys,
I'm sure guys are all nervous.
They always thought about it. You know, every time you think you're tougher, there's always somebody out there that's tougher than you.
And then at what point did you two guys meet in this journey of ice hockey?
Go ahead, Lenny. 96, I guess.
Yeah, 96.
1996.
96. Barry was playing. I was holding down 2 jobs and putting myself through school at the time. And one of my part-time jobs was I was a bartender at a very, very popular nightclub. And every hockey team that came in to play the Oilers, they all would go to that nightclub after games and stuff. So, I mean, I met tons of NHL players over the years, and I'll give you the shortest version I possibly can. A couple of Barry's friends would always come into the club. One of them actually worked there, and they kept saying to Barry, there's this girl you need to meet. There's this girl you need to meet. And this is unbeknownst to me. I know nothing about this. Anyway, he was playing in Utah for the, was it IHL?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he came home for the summer, and he came into the bar, met me. We hit it off, and his buddy said to him, that's the girl we were telling you about. So ironically, he met me without them being involved. And then, and then he signed with the Anaheim Ducks shortly thereafter. And he said, I'm signing with the Ducks. And you're like, okay, I'll see you later. You know, I'll see you back in the spring or whatever. And we just kept in touch. We still phoned each other and stuff. And I was taking a trip to Hawaii with some girlfriends, and Barry said, well, why don't you come down to LA and come stay with me for a bit, and we'll see if we can make this work. So I did. So I flew back from Hawaii. We had a stop over in LA. So my girlfriends continued on home, and I stayed in LA for a week, and the rest is history.
I mean, if you want to impress a woman, living in LA is a good way to start.
It was
is.
a hell of a good way to start.
Is,
yeah. Yeah. You can't go wrong. Rodeo Drive, for shopping, and just
Venice, and
Venice Beach.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
What is it like living in LA, Barry? I imagine that is completely different to everything else you've experienced.
Absolutely. You know what? It's like watching the TV shows or these sitcoms that are all out there now. I mean, everybody's wearing shorts and flip-flops and tank tops. I mean, you get up every single morning and it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Like it's just amazing. And you go for a jog, you go work out, you're right along the ocean, and just, it's a beautiful weather all the time. Everybody seems to be, in my experience anyway, back then, everybody seemed to be happy, jolly,
friendly,
go lucky, friendly.
Yeah. Believe it or not, people are very friendly.
Yeah.
It's the East Coasters that have the bad reputation for being a bit hard-nosed and not as friendly, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, there's different areas, I guess. But for the most part, I found that actually the Americans were very, very friendly.
Yeah, actually they are. They're quite friendly, actually. But you're right. I mean, to some degree, I think New Yorkers are,
Boston.
you know, yeah. And we lived outside of Boston. It was an hour door to door, like from our front door to downtown Boston was an hour. And I spent some time in Boston when Barry and the guys, of course, were on road trips and stuff. A few of us girls would drive to Boston, and we had a good time. But yeah, it's a different attitude. It's a different atmosphere. Great city. Loved it. Yeah. Each city has its own culture.
Yeah, that's thing in America, isn't it? Like each state is almost like a different country, like because of how big North America is. Over here, like going from one state to another would be like literally visiting another country.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. It's just those cities have such neat cultures. Like it's just every city is a new experience, and that's I think what makes the hockey life so exciting.
And I imagine I've spoken to people who've played hockey in Florida, and they say that they never want to leave there because when you're going to the rink every day with sunshine and palm trees, you don't want to go and play somewhere like Buffalo where it's cold and everything. Was that the same for you? Once you get in that situation, I imagine you want to stick there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was fortunate to play 4 years in very, very nice climates, but it's like anything else, you get used to it, but you can't beat it. I mean, if you were going to hand a guy a contract, for example, hand yourself a contract, and you had to pick between, say, Calgary or Edmonton and LA, it'd be pretty simple where you would go. Especially the weather-wise, right? Like you say, palm trees and wearing flip-flops and shorts every day.
Although the fans are different, though. I find in the northern climates, it's very, very hockey-oriented. So it's a different culture in the rink. So I think living in LA, living in Florida, living in these warmer climates, it's lovely for your day-to-day life. But if you really want that strong fan base and those real diehard fans, the northern climates, I think, tend to have that more because it's all about hockey.
It's also when you go to a game in Anaheim or LA, because I've had like Jimmy Pack's been on here. He like says that people go there. It's a status thing to go and watch the hockey. It's not that they're into the sport actually. It's more that they go just to say they've been.
Yeah, I mean, I'm part of them for sure.
It's changed. I think when Wayne Gretzky signed with LA way back when, he changed the whole spectrum of what hockey is in the US. And so now a lot of, I mean, you'll always have your old hockey cities, your Bostons, your New Yorks, your Pittsburghs, you know, all of those. Sure. But he definitely brought hockey to LA into some of these warmer climates. So you do have your diehards there for sure.
And then when obviously you guys get together, what's it like being partners with someone who does the role that Barry does? Because I imagine on some level it must be a bit scary, like to watch him do the role he has in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about this a little bit, and I kind of figured you'd ask that question. It's funny because when you're younger, I don't know how to explain this. When you're younger, you're more resilient. You know, you think, you know, nothing's a challenge, nothing's hard, you know, you'll get through it. It's not a big deal. I think as you get older, you think about the repercussions a lot more. And I think if I watched Barry fight now, I don't think I could, to be quite honest with you. I think that would be really difficult. So when we're younger, it was still difficult, but not like it probably would be for me now. You know, that Sheffield match, I'm sure we'll talk about that, but that was tough. That was tough. Yeah.
Does your perspective change on that, Barry, at all? Obviously, you still carried on the role you had, but when you get together and you're in a couple, does that affect you mentally at all when you go about the role that you do? Or you did?
No, actually, it was just something I did, and I knew I had to do it. So as soon as you walked in the ring, as soon as you put your gear on, it was like, for me, it was kind of like a light switch. Once I was off the ice, everything was back to normal. And then once I was on the ice and I knew that was part of my role, you just, obviously you accept it because you want to be a part of the team and you want to do the best you can do, but you just go out there and do it, right?
And then when you're in Anaheim, there's a guy in that team who's quite well known, in Teemu Selanne. What's it like being around a guy like that?
Well, it's pretty awe-inspiring, actually. Him and Paul Craig, for example. Yeah, they were the faces of that organization without a doubt. So they just had the aura about them, right? I mean, I remember Teemu Selanne, he'd come in, everybody would be all dressed. And you think, okay, he's never going to make it on time. Well, it took him probably under a minute to get dressed completely. He had his shoulder pads connected to his pants, his knee pads connected to his, like everything. So when his socks, and he slipped it on, he was like boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, within 35, 40 seconds, he pretty much was dressed. Like I never seen anything like it. It was all.
He had everything sewn in?
He had all sewn a certain way. And it was just like,
that's hilarious.
Okay, that's amazing. You just walk in, boom, get ready.
And obviously on TV, he looks fast. But I imagine in person, the TV does him no justice when he's on the ice and you're watching him do the things he's doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when it's just like watching Connor McDavid now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you realize it, you see it, and you can see it, but when you're actually physically there watching the game, it's hands down, it's just totally different. Yeah, and he was very fast as well, and skilled.
You know, it's interesting. I want to add to that. You know, all these years I've watched hockey. Obviously, I'm up in the stands, watching Barry and the teams play. I'm up in the stands, and you see the game from a bird's eye perspective. I remember one time though, I actually sat more ice level and watched the game, and it literally opened my eyes. It was such a faster game looking at it from ice level than from, I couldn't believe it. I truly, I mean, I've been to how many hockey games and it's just, yeah, it kind of opened my eyes. I was kind of blown away how fast the sport is from an ice level perspective versus up higher.
Because at what point did you then start doing negotiations on Barry's behalf? Like, you know, to negotiate with teams. At what point did you start doing that? Was it before he came to England or was it during that process?
It was before. It was basically as soon as I met her, really. As soon as she moved in with me. And then I realized, okay.
No, I think it was after McSorley.
Yeah.
I think it was after the McSorley debacle in London. And a
little before that. But yeah, McSorley was... We felt
that his agent really wasn't doing much for him at this point anymore. And it wasn't my intention. I just kind of got thrown into it, to be quite frank. So I don't know if I did a good job or not, but anyway, we did it.
Well, you stuck him in Nottingham for 3 years, so you definitely did a good job.
Yeah, well, that was your agent, I think. That had nothing to do with me.
Yeah, that was pretty much done even before. I mean, it wasn't done verbally. It was done when I finished with London.
Yeah.
Especially after 1 year with McSorley, that was enough.
We got to get our digs in.
You've got to. That's what brings the viewers in as well, the digs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that time does come. What goes into that decision to make the jump across the pond to England to go and play for London? Because I imagine that's a big conversation between the two of you as well.
Yeah.
You know what? It was obviously a very important conversation, but it was an easy conversation.
Yeah, it was.
Because I mean, in North America at that point, I knew I was pretty much done. My hopes of playing in the show were kind of done. And then that type of opportunity doesn't happen very often either, because you get to go to completely different countries, see different things,
Different cultures,
different everything. So, I mean, most people never get to see that. Never mind if they are lucky enough to see, but to live it is a little bit different, because you get to see a lot more, and the people and everything else. It just makes everything that much more interesting, basically.
Yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer, I think. It was I think, I agree with you. I mean, I think Barry knew you have a shelf life in North America for so long, and then often the opportunity to play overseas comes up at that point, and the shelf life overseas is a few more years. And the opportunity to, like Barry said, to experience a new culture and experience a whole new league and kind of just breathe fresh air into this whole hockey world, because it can get stale. You know, when you're up and down playing in the minors, it plays a real mental toll on any hockey player. It doesn't matter, you know, how good you are. It's all about, I think, the early years. If you signed a one-way or a two-way contract, it's unfortunate, because there are a lot of really good players that are stuck in the minors that can't get out, you know, so it's too bad. And at some point you reach that kind of boiling point where you're like, you know what, we've kind of had enough playing this game. So for us, it was a no-brainer. I remember though, when Barry got the call and you know, we both said, there's a league in England, like we didn't know. Right?
Well, you're so focused on what you're
North
doing,
America,
you're doing here, is that you're not paying attention unless you have a buddy that just went there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we were shocked. We're like, oh, okay, well, let's explore this.
I imagine London is quite alluring as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was that was an eye opener, without a doubt. It was.
Yeah, I think so. It was interesting. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
How did you find living in London then? Well, how far out of the city was the team?
Actually, we were in the Docklands.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when the Docklands was just starting to get
clean up,
converted, and starting to build the buildings and stuff like that there. Yeah, I know, it was interesting. I mean, anywhere you get around here, first of all, you don't take the tram. The train, you don't go anywhere. So that was all different, right? And that's a whole different world over there. And just so many people, right? Having so many people congested in one small area, like compared to where we come from, because it's so, you know, we're so wide open, right?
And how did you find the hockey over here then? Because obviously, like you said, it wasn't on your radar until it came on your radar. So imagine when you hit the ice over here, that's your first experience of it.
Actually, no, I was surprised, because I mean, so many of the guys had played over here in North America already. So you knew that a lot of these guys played in the NHL, and so you knew that there was good players. And it's a very good league. You got a lot of good players playing in this league. And then over the years, as time goes too, England has produced better and better players. It's just like everybody seems to be getting better and better. You probably noticed that even more so now. We've been gone how many years, but I bet you there's younger and younger players that are better and better than there ever was.
So we got a guy on the team now, Ollie Bettridge. I cannot. He's been around the team since he was 17. I can't believe he's still only 24. He makes me feel so old.
Well, I mean, when we were there, you could really see that Nottingham, and I think, of course, other cities around the league were really focusing on junior development and really trying to bring up some homegrown hockey players in the league. Paul Moran,
that was a good. When he first started coming in.
David Clark, I mean, there's another one.
He worked his way up, and he became a hell of a player. Right?
Ashley, remember Ashley?
Ashley Tate, excellent hockey player.
Yeah, he was good.
Because you came in at a point where the British League was quite import heavy. They kind of went away from the limit. Yeah. And they kind of went nuts with the North Americans.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So as a Brit, you had to be able to bring something to the table, like a David Clark, like an Ashley Tate, like a Paul Moran. You had to be able to bring something to the table to make it into those.
Exactly.
That made them better players.
Yeah.
Yes.
It did. Yeah.
For sure it did.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they learned the culture too from a lot of these, these cagey vets from North America and and all over the place. Yeah.
Like that goes one of two ways. They learn the culture or they lead them astray. It depends which ones you hook onto.
Exactly. Depends on the place and the time, I guess.
Yeah. That's true.
What was the fan base like in London? Did that open your eyes as to what there was a taste for ice hockey in the UK when you got there and you experienced the fan base, the UK fan base?
Absolutely, it did. But I would have to say, even when I was playing in London, it opened my eyes when I came to Nottingham for the first time. And I remember I was going after Hads for whatever reason. Hads came by and
he was a dirty little player, though.
Yeah,
he's pretty, all right. Yeah.
He came by and gave me a little shot, and I remember saying something to him that he tore off, and then I think I caught him in the corner. But what I found out a year later is that his wife was she was right almost over the glass, and I guess I was doing what I do, blowing kisses at her, and she was getting really upset. So it was Jen. Really? So I found out a year later, and it was like coming into the jungle in there, and it's just like all these people were just all they wanted to do was almost like kill me. Of course, I was
have a piece of you,
being a smart ass and just blowing kisses and how you doing, and then getting them all fired up. So yeah, it was like walking into the jungle there.
Yeah, but people didn't like playing against Barry, but they liked having him on their team, obviously. Yeah.
Well, I spoke to Jamie Leach not long ago. I mentioned, like, 'cause obviously he played against you when you were in London, then you played together the year after, and he said that you were never a guy he was worried about on the ice. He said that you would deal with the big guys. You wouldn't go after him for no reason, sort of thing. And
that's right.
That shows like the kind of role and the respect you had among the league even at that point.
Yeah, I know for sure. I mean, we'd never go after the little guys and do stuff like that. If something needed to be done, you go up to their tough guy and say, hey, tone it down a bit, or things might get a little ugly here. But yeah, it depended. It depended on the circumstances, and everybody had a job to do, and you did it, but you still had to be respectful of everyone else that was there.
And it sounds like that you, as an opposition player in another team's rink, you very much embrace the role of the pantomime villain if you're blowing kisses at the fans and things.
Oh, absolutely. I relish that, especially to get them fired up. It
would just throw people over the edge.
It was entertaining. It was entertaining for me because I knew deep down, I mean, they'd probably be hating me at the moment, but then, I mean, I knew that if I came to their team, then they would love me. But it's just something.
It's part of the game.
It's the part of the game. It's part of what you do, right? You just do what you got to do to get your team to win, and you do what you got to do to help.
Yeah.
And what do you remember about that old Nottingham Ice Stadium?
Just that it was so small, and it seems like the fans, and that was also a great part of it. It seemed like the fans were like just right on top of you. That was always a memory that I remember there. It's just the smallness of it. Everything was so small, and
I heard it was a loud barn, though.
Very loud because everybody was so enclosed and on you, right?
And they got the old school organist up in the rafters as well, and they embraced the whole situation of how it was there.
Yeah, it was basically right out of Slapshot. You just had the organist up there.
Really? Oh my God! Wow.
Oh yeah, right out of Slapshot.
Old school hockey. I like it.
You have Gary with his big glasses on writing the match reports upstairs as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
Probably that first year, right, about how Barry was pushing his luck with all the Panthers players.
Probably.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's funny.
So, Candace, were you just watching? Were you going to watch in London, or were you traveling around to watch some of the away games as well at this point?
No, actually, I didn't actually live in London with Barry.
Okay.
So we got engaged that summer before he left for London, and so I stayed back planning a wedding, working 2 jobs, and going to school. So I was a little busy. So
we didn't get there till.
Yeah,
well,
we didn't get there till Christmas.
See, that's a whole new story.
But
sorely,
yeah, so I think I flew to London twice to go see Barry play, and that was it. So they were quick trips, but I saw enough. I toured around and stuff. And by the time I moved to Nottingham, which was the next year, I could have been a London tour guide, I think, because I knew the city so well, and and the tube, and every time people came to visit, I would take them to London and take them on the tour. And so it was nice. It was nice. I'm glad I got to see kind of that side of London from a perspective of someone that actually lives there.
I usually go to London about once a year, and I still can't work out the tube. So any help at any point is appreciated.
Well, I probably couldn't now, that's for sure. But then I was pretty well versed.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So the really cool thing about you playing in London, Barry, is that you won the playoffs in London, and that was like your first professional championship. So
Yes.
what did that mean? That must have meant a lot to you, because like winning a trophy is the hardest thing in ice hockey.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically anytime you win a championship with the group of guys, it's pretty special, and especially with the group we had there were some characters there, right? So we had a lot of fun, and just enjoy every moment that you can.
And then when did the opportunity with Nottingham come up? So I imagine when London, obviously you mentioned the problems with McSorley and things like that. So I don't imagine you were looking to go back to London. So the options would have been go back to North America or look for somewhere else in the UK.
Yeah, no, I think it was basically as soon as the season was done, our agent basically said that Nottingham was interested, and as soon as they said, I go, absolutely, we talked to Candace about it. And
I think we had a conversation with Gary.
Yeah, and then we talked to Gary, and it was...
And I think he told us about the new ice rink and kind of what Nottingham was doing as a city to enhance hockey. It sounded great. It sounded great. Gary was great, to speak to on the phone. He was open and honest. And I think it was kind of a no-brainer. I think Belfast was looking at the time too, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Belfast fans won't be happy to hear that, because you're kind of a villain over there these days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's not too many places I am not a villain.
That quote just there is going to be the teaser for this whole episode. So obviously, when you're getting involved with Nottingham, you're coming into what is essentially a rebuild. They're going to this new stadium. The team, like a lot of players left, and like Paul Lady had left the team at this point. He was a fixture over here. Were you fully prepared to accept that you were walking into this rebuild, this project to establish hockey in the city in this new arena, and they probably weren't going to win things early on?
Yeah, no, absolutely I was. But you know what? It's coming into a city like that. Like, we talked to a lot of the guys, and some of the guys that I knew, and we talked to them, and they said what a great city it was, and how amazing the fans were. And then you don't really have a grasp of it until you actually come to Nottingham and play and just witness the whole thing. Because I mean, the fans are truly the best fans.
Really good fans.
That I've ever seen. Like, they're amazing.
Well, and I think that plus also the hockey team, the management, all the people working in the office and behind the scenes, they were so appreciative
To make it all work, yeah.
And to welcome us there, like not just to the players, but to the wives, the girlfriends, whoever. And I think that makes a big difference. I felt like in London, Barry wasn't appreciated, he wasn't treated well. Whatever happened with McSorley at the time, whatever. I mean, I don't want to water under the bridge, but it was such a different culture versus Nottingham. It was like a breath of fresh air. I think that's what made it so easy for us to make that decision.
Yeah, it was
because everyone got behind it, not just Gary, but everyone from the trainers to the players to the staff to everybody. They were so welcoming and helpful.
And then one of the things I heard, and you'll be able to guess my source on this one very quickly when I get into this little thing here. But Barry would obviously deal with everyone on the ice who he would, but whenever he needed something in Nottingham, I heard he didn't want any part of Gary Moran. He had to send Candace to go and fight those battles.
Absolutely.
Who told you that?
I'll give you one guess.
Gary.
Correct.
What battles would those be?
She was a hell of a negotiator.
No, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
What battles in particular?
He didn't go into specifics. I imagine it would be about probably like if you pay negotiating a pay rise for Barry as the seasons go on and things like that. He just mentioned that you were the one he dealt with whenever you needed something doing.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe
No, I totally remember. You basically did it all. Sometimes I wouldn't even go. You were on your own. You would just take care of it. It's probably better that I wasn't there.
Aw.
No, Gary's been awesome.
Yeah, he's been
all
good.
our years and through all these years after, he's top shelf.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, he's been very good to us.
So then were you in Nottingham from day one with Barry then, Candace? Like when he came over? So that been your first opportunity to get involved in, like, you know, properly involved with the wives and stuff, and like, because obviously the wives all congregate as a group sort of thing. Obviously you missed that in London when you were planning your wedding.
Yeah. Yes and no. Because when Barry played in the States, I would fly. I lived with him, you know, for 3 months in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then I think 4 months in Springfield, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, like I mentioned earlier. So I mean, I had a part of that kind of culture prior to, but our first year, in Nottingham, we were married, so obviously that I lived there full time, and I was a bit different though. I worked full time in Nottingham as a personal trainer, and I taught fitness classes and stuff like that. So I had the hockey life, but I also still had a life of my own. And I've always been that way, kind of fiercely independent, for the good or bad, whatever you want to call it. But so a lot of my friends, till this day, I still have really good friends living in Nottingham, and that's who I hung out with. And then sometimes I would hang out with the hockey wives and girlfriends, and so it really depended. But it was nice to have that, you know, my own life, you know, and my own independence. I think that's hugely important.
When you get to Nottingham, what are your initial impressions of, you know, the city and the new arena that you're walking into?
Well, she loves that type of culture, so
Yeah.
I knew she would love it. But
I loved it. I mean, I miss Nottingham. I really, really do. I love the lifestyle. I love the culture. I love the city center, as we call downtown, you know, the cobblestone streets and the outdoor vendors and the cute little delis and cafes and things like that. Like, I love that.
Let's not forget the pubs.
Right. Of course. Can't forget the pubs. Of course. But I miss that, you know, I loved it. I loved that, the walkability of that city center. You know, I would always be at the arena, and then I would just walk down to city center, do what I had to do. And I loved it. And even driving around the city was easy.
Because Nottingham's one of those cities where it feels bigger than it is, doesn't it? Like it's not huge, but there's never nothing to do there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. 100%. You just nailed it. Yeah.
And being able to walk everywhere. I love that.
Yeah.
Being able to walk everywhere.
That was nice. Yeah. Great culture downtown.
I mean, was it Tim Hortons? Is it Tim Hortons?
Where? Starbucks. Yeah.
Starbucks.
We'd always go to Starbucks.
I won't mention names, but there's a few characters on the team that we played. Probably my second year. Anyway, you guys may or may not figure it out, but we would sit at Starbucks.
It's where the team would always go after
and we'd have
practice.
our coffee by the window, and there'd be 5, 6 of us guys sitting there, and then all of a sudden one of the guys goes, "Oh, this would be fun," and they would go and take out some change, and they would glue it to the cement and just watch people go by trying to pick it up, and then if they couldn't, they would just look at them and they'd be pointing and laughing. It's like, oh my God, you guys.
Simple things for entertainment, honestly.
Oh, that's making me laugh more than it should. I've been around hockey players too long myself.
Oh,
well, it's great until that elderly lady came and tried to pick it up.
Yeah, then you feel bad.
And then all of a sudden, okay, get that thing off of there. Enough.
Then you feel bad.
Yeah. And what were your first impressions of the arena when you got to lay that? Because obviously Gary's told you they've built this new arena in the city. What did you make of that when you walked in there for the first time?
To be honest with you, it was probably a lot more than I expected.
Me too.
I wasn't, like, I had no idea that it would be like that state of the art. Like, it was pretty much like a brand new North American building. Like, they did it up right.
Yeah, just a smaller scale.
Just walking through the hallways and just the finishing on the paints and the doors and everything. It just, the way they set up the boxes, like, and the rooms, it was just purely professional. They did a hell of a job setting that arena.
Yeah, they did. And even with the practice ice rink, and like, they did a really good job.
And that's one of the things you always hear from. One of the most important things to a hockey player is the changing rooms, isn't it? I found that out from this show. If you haven't noticed, that the one thing hockey players will complain about the most is poor changing rooms.
Yes. Yeah. And let me tell you, my first year playing in that league, there was some towns, I won't mention names, but man, it was just like going back in Saskatchewan, where you were just in a small little rink. And I mean, it is what it is, but yeah, that place was state of the art is basically the point I'm trying to make.
And how did you find going from that to playing in the other rinks? Like, because when you go through, I can't remember, like, I wasn't watching it, so I can't remember, I haven't wrote it down, what other teams are in the league at this point. But they're not all like that. Like each rink in England is its own beast. Exactly.
And you know what? It was actually nice. It was kind of refreshing to realize that when you go out and play somewhere else, that you actually were very fortunate and lucky because you got to play and practice in such a great arena. So when you went to the other ones, it was just, gave you a little piece of the pie, just realize that how lucky you are to be playing in the city that you're playing in.
And at that time, is the schedule as it is now? Was it 2 games at the weekend and most of the week to yourself?
Yes. Yeah. It was mostly on weekends. Yeah.
Because that's a challenge to adapt to, isn't it? Like when you've got so much time to yourself rather than having to play throughout the week and stuff like you do in the coast and things.
Yeah, well, you basically practice every day. So, I mean, that burns up half your day. I mean, you get up in the morning, go practice. By the time you're done, it's going to be early, go for lunch, whatever, afternoon. And then you just enjoyed the city, enjoyed the sights, and, you had friends, and you go out for supper and just hang out and just enjoy the area, right? Because, I mean, you love doing that. You love to go see different areas. And
yeah, it was nice on their days off. We would venture out and try to explore a little bit more of the English countryside and discovered some of our favorite places even till this day. So that was kind of nice to have those little breaks in between. Or, after a practice, if they weren't playing the next day, it was our opportunity just to venture out even for a few hours and see a little bit more. So that was nice.
Did you manage to get out into Europe at all and see any of the other cities and stuff?
I didn't. Candace did.
Well, we did. When you guys had a break at Christmas. Yeah. It was funny. We were laughing about this, like even now, because in North America, it's so spread out, especially Canada. And it is so expensive to fly anywhere. It's ridiculous. And so these guys had, I think, 4 days off. I think it was December 26th to the 30th or 31st. I can't remember. Anyway, it was a few days. And I was looking at flights, where we could go for a quick trip. And it was so cheap. It was almost like we were having this conversation and it wasn't real. We could fly to Venice or we could fly to Amsterdam. And it was like 50 quid a person or something. It was ridiculous. It was so inexpensive. And we were laughing. We're like, do we go to Venice? Do we go to Amsterdam? Like, where do we go? That's unheard of. You just don't do that, here because it's so expensive and so far. So we ended up flying we chose Amsterdam. Yeah. We did Amsterdam for 4 days.
That's a pretty nice city. A lot of boats.
A lot of fun. And then other times when Barry was playing, myself and a couple girls myself and another girl, we went to Bordeaux, France, and took the Eurostar, and I did Paris a couple times with some other friends. So I was lucky. It was nice. It was fun.
And one of the guys on your team that year, I can't imagine he was involved in this coin sticking around, because he's generally the nicest guy I've ever spoken to, and everyone else I've been told he is the nicest guy in the world, is Jim Pack. I can't imagine he was involved in those shenanigans.
Jimmy was not involved with this at all. No. And you're right. He is one of the nicest guys.
He's such a gentleman. One of the nicest
teammates I played with. Yeah. He's absolute gentleman. Yeah. Without a doubt.
And like someone like him coming in, like obviously he had tremendous NHL pedigree when he came in. He'd won two Stanley Cups at that point. He had a ton. Did that show you the direction the league was going in even more when a guy like that will come to a place like Nottingham?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, it did. Especially when you got guys that have that much experience, and then the pedigree behind them coming into it just made our league and made Nottingham better, and made our whole league better.
Well, I think our first year they brought in Jimmy Pack, Barry and PC Droon at the same time, and Jamie Leach was still captain, I believe, at that time. And so PC
Strooch is
Dave Strooch, yeah. But PC Droon, Jimmy Pack, and ourselves, we were all neighbors in the same complex, so we all kind of got to know each other all at the same time, and we're the newbies. So that was kind of nice, you know. That was nice to have, you know, friends and neighbors almost instantly.
Were there any away rinks that you liked visiting? Were there any in particular that you liked going to? I imagine going back to London was quite fun, for example.
London. I enjoyed Manchester. Yeah, Manchester was pretty cool.
Were they playing out of the arena back then, or were they in Altrincham by that point?
They were in the arena.
Okay.
I want to say, yeah, because it was a decent arena, actually. Their arena was pretty nice.
They're not there anymore, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
They're not there anymore?
No, they're just outside of the city in something that's a bit more like Coventry, as an example.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So it's a bit smaller than the arena.
I imagine there's been lots of changes since we've been there.
Oh yeah, there's teams gone, teams come and gone, all sorts of the wonderful world of British ice hockey. Nothing ever stays the same.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, but it's always evolving. Hopefully for the good.
Oh, most definitely. And now, obviously, everyone knows the incident against Sheffield in February of that first year in Nottingham for you.
Yeah.
How early on were you made aware of what the rivalry was between the Panthers and the Steelers?
Instantly.
Pretty much since the first game.
I think instantly. I think we were forewarned that this is a big deal and the intensity behind it.
And don't take it lightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Gary might have actually mentioned that, now that I think. But look at that. I think he was stirring the pot way before we even knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Kidding, Gary.
He probably was knowing Gary. Don't worry about that. You don't need to apologize.
Oh, for sure. I think there was such a big build-up in the media.
Well, so you've got Gary on one side and Dave Sims on the other.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And Dave Sims never held back when it came to Barry especially, and Gary, and the whole Panthers organization. I mean, he never held back. But we all knew that was part of the marketing and the build-up. But, it almost got to a point where it was such a build-up that it didn't just affect the players. It affected their spouses, too, because knowing...
You didn't know what was going to happen.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, if we're going to talk about Sheffield, let's talk about Dennis Vial. I mean, Dennis Vial... It's interesting what you said earlier. You said Jamie Leach never was worried about Barry because he would only kind of pick on the guys his own size, so to speak. And where it came to Dennis Vial,
picked on Haddon.
Yeah, he picked on Greg Haddon, and he went out to hurt guys. And I think that was the difference. With Barry, it was cause and effect. If someone does something, he retaliates. But I think with Sheffield, there was such a rivalry, and there was such a build-up that their tough guy, he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders to perform and get the fans going and all that. So as soon as that puck dropped, I mean, everyone was on the edge of their seat, including us. And that's kind of what made it dangerous, is because I felt like he went out to hurt guys. Particularly, this guy had a target on his back, and that was a bit nerve-wracking.
So we'll get into that game now then, if that's okay.
Sure.
So from your perspective, Barry, what just talk me through that whole incident as you remember it.
Well, basically, I mean, everything was building up prior to that, right? And then I remember sitting on the bench, and I just seen Vial. He was basically running around, and he was going after Hads. And I remember he gave Hads a cross check, and he gave him a couple shots. And of course, Hads being Hads,
he's a tough guy.
Tough, very tough. He'd give it right back.
Yeah. So
then I can't remember who I was yelling at. I was yelling at somebody that was close to the bench, and basically saying, "Get off the ice, come here." Like, didn't matter who he was. It could have been a bloody defenseman, but I knew I needed to get on the ice because I seen all this going on. So then I just went out there and basically did what I did, right? So, well, long story short is I went after him. And then I think I turned my head, and that's when Allison came by and cross-checked me.
Oh, that was awful.
And at that point, I didn't remember much because all of a sudden my helmet went flying like 15 feet in the air from the cross-check. And then I just went down and caught my bearings. And basically once I got up, as we talked about that light switch, well, the light switch went off.
Yeah.
And I just did what I did, right?
You just saw red.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think I saw red from the stands.
So you're watching that. You're watching that in the stands. Could you tell at some point you felt this was going to boil over? If you're watching that.
We knew it before the game started. Like there was such a hype to this. And I felt it would be, you know, a VL versus Barry match. I didn't think obviously it would be a bench brawl. Nobody did. But I think from the moment the puck dropped, like I said, you could cut the tension with a knife. And the way guys were running each other over, like you just knew something was going to happen. And you'd mentioned earlier, you know, what was it like watching the game from up in the box? I actually wasn't in the box at that game. I was sitting in the stands with a few of the girls and watching this all unfold. And the funny thing, well, not funny, but the ironic thing is all the people knew I was sitting there. So they would watch what's going on the ice, and then they'd all turn around and look at me to see what my reaction was. And I remember thinking to myself, keep it together and don't give them the reaction that they're hoping that they have or they're hoping to see. I didn't want to do that. So I tried to keep it together. I was mad as hell, I'm not going to lie, watching what happened, especially when Allison, you know, skated across the ice 40 kilometers an hour and took his head off. I mean, for me, I saw that unfold in slow motion, and my inner voice is yelling out, Barry, turn around. And, you know, like you're helpless watching this unfold. And when that happened, that was tough. I mean, I wanted to climb over the boards myself, never mind, but I was so scared because he wasn't getting up. And of course, that's when everyone turned around to look at me to see my reaction. And I just kind of sat there and I didn't do anything. I was kind of in shock. I was scared. I was nervous. I was angry. I was everything, you know. And then when he got up, talk about a relief. Yeah, that was awful.
I'm guessing the first thing after the game that you're doing then is making sure he's okay.
Of course, yeah. It was awful. I thought, you know, a guy could get paralyzed. He can get concussions. He can have, you know, long-term effects from this. And it was nerve-wracking. It was horrible.
Well, especially with what we know now.
Yeah.
With concussions and everything, right?
Well, and when he was down, it might have only been 30 seconds. To me, it felt like, you know, hours, right? It wasn't fun, but I was mad. Oh, was I mad? Yeah.
Don't get mama mad.
But, you know, it all worked out and it was fine. And, you know, Allison owned up to it, and the guys had their moment afterwards. And
I'll say Allison took his licking like a champ based on the video.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He even, I think, I don't know, it's probably in the video, but he even, I think after the fight, he kind of went like this, you know, he kind of put his shoulders and hands up in the air and said, okay, well, you know, it's done. And
hey, he showed up.
He did. Yeah.
He did what he did, but you got to give a guy credit for showing up.
Yeah.
Because a few years later as well, he would become your teammate as well.
Absolutely.
Was the next year.
Basically the next year.
Yeah. So what was that like? Do you guys have a conversation, or does poor lady let you know he's bringing this guy in? Or?
No, well,
we knew.
Yeah, I know we knew. He told us, but I mean, once we had that fight, I guess would have been the next year. So it would have been the following year. It was done. I mean, he showed up, you know, paid the piper. It's done. So that's one thing about hockey. You go through your emotions, you do your thing. You got some rivalry, and you just take care of it. Just like guys, you just go and do your thing and it's over.
Yeah.
Forget about it and you move on. So when he came, I went right up and shook his hand. He looked at me, I looked at him, and we laughed and chuckled. I think we went out for lunch and beers that first day, actually.
We actually became really good friends with the Allisons. they're great people, you know, Scott and his wife, great people, like really, really nice people. Yeah, like they were great people. And even talking with Scott's wife, I mean, she said the same thing. Like she felt horribly mortified from that, and you know, everything in hindsight. But it was that boiling point. It was that hype and that rivalry. I mean, that is one of probably the best rivalries in hockey.
You always hear that.
Sure.
You always hear, especially when they say there's no, because obviously when the traveling fans come, like fans don't always travel in North America, but in England, when you travel, you're bringing Panthers fans with you, so that adds, and Steelers fans come down to Nottingham, so that adds to the whole atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it
really does. Yeah.
It just ramps it up to another level, right?
Yeah. That was a whole interesting experience, you know, going to football games for the first time and watching how they separate the home team from the visiting team fans. Like, that's new to us. We've never experienced that before. And to
line up with the police.
Yeah, and to see that even at hockey games, you know. Edmonton, so Calgary and Edmonton, they call it the Battle of Alberta in the NHL here. And Calgary and Edmonton have a huge rivalry as well. It's almost like the Sheffield-Nottingham rivalry. And so we do have a lot of fans come up from Calgary and vice versa when they play each other, but they don't segregate them separately, so that's what's so unique and different about the UK when you're visiting fans. Never seen that before.
What I really like about that is that you said it's almost as good as Nottingham Sheffield, which tells me that Nottingham Sheffield is better than an NHL rivalry, which
it is.
Which Gary can now use in his marketing.
Yeah,
back in that day, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was a really good rivalry.
Plus the game's changed now, right? It's not like it was back then. So, I mean, if you tried that now, I probably would have been banned. Yeah. Myself, Allison, we all would have been banned from the league for life.
Probably.
So what gets said to you after that game, Barry? You know, when it all settles down and like the coaches get you in the room and like Gary's around, what gets said to you in that room after that incident?
Do you want to resign for 2 more years?
Probably.
Fair. So, but
you know what? There wasn't much said because I mean,
you won the game.
Yeah.
I think Gary shook your hand. I think he shook everybody's hand and said, "Well done." I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, after that, it just made our team more cohesive. I mean, especially instances like that, you would think that it wouldn't, but everybody's battling for everybody. I mean,
you bonded.
You're in there. You're battling as a team, and you have no idea what's going to go on because you have nobody policing what's going on. So you may be one of those guys that you never fought much, or you're scared or intimidated or whatever the case may be. But that may have been some of the guys the first time in their life that they ever had to go into battle, and they had no choice. And you couldn't just run and hide. You'd have to show up and do what you got to do because people are coming at you from every direction, and they're throwing punches and they're grabbing. And so, I mean, yeah, I've been in a few of those. So you get the adrenaline going, you're fine. But what about all the other guys that didn't? Like, talk
about a bonding moment.
And your adrenaline pumps. You come in that room and everybody was just high-fiving or fighting and hugging, and it's a pretty amazing moment actually.
And then, based on what you guys were saying earlier, it sounds like you fell in love with Nottingham pretty quickly. So I'm guessing it was very easy to make the decision to come back again.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We knew basically that at that point, once we signed, that we didn't want to go anywhere else and finish our career there, without a doubt.
Then obviously Peter Woods leaves the team and Paul Adey's brought in as the coach. So what? And obviously you probably know what Paul's legend was in Nottingham at that point. Yes, he had his year in Sheffield that no one likes to talk about because Paul Adey in the Steelers jersey is just wrong. But what do you remember about talking to Paul about what your role would be? Because obviously he put an A on your chest.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it was just, I think because I was there already and had a little more experience. And like I said, I wasn't one of those guys that just went out looking for it. I went out and tried to play and try to contribute in other ways as well. So, and then just having pep talks with the guys, the team was younger and like we were rebuilding. So I actually felt privileged that he did put that A on my chest.
And how did you find Paul as a coach?
It was excellent. Yeah.
Paul was intense.
Yeah.
I'm talking to him tomorrow.
You wanted to win.
What's that?
I'm talking to him tomorrow.
Are you?
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he was intense. He was really focused. He always did his homework and really studied before games and strategies.
He was very well prepared.
Yeah, he really was.
He was very, very well prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, our practices were how we were the next level because he was just so prepared in what your X's and O's and what he wanted you to do, without a doubt.
And the other guy who's involved in the hockey side of things those first 2 years is Alex Dampier. He's down as the director of hockey operations. What do you obviously Dance's another guy who's legend in Nottingham. Is set. He took the team to win Wembley in 1989, the first trophy since the reformation of the team. What do you remember about Alex Dampier?
Damps again, amazing coach, and actually to this day a good friend. Like he was unbelievable. I remember walking into the room and he didn't even say much. He would just, okay, boys, let's go do it. And he had his line set up and he had his guys set up and he just had that respect. You just walked in that room and you just looked at him and he was the player's coach.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
He was the player's coach.
100%.
100%. And yeah, I mean, he's another unbelievable.
Yeah, he was amazing. I loved Alex. Just a real salt of the earth, genuine human being, like just such a nice person. Yeah.
And the one of the next big incidents that you were involved in, Barry, is the third year you're in Nottingham is what happened in Belfast. Now, I've watched the video of this. I can't really work out what kicks the whole thing off. I have my main question is, why did you take your shirt off? That's my big main question in all of this. But what do you remember about that incident in Belfast?
That's a long time ago now. But
what year are we talking?
I think that's
this would be 2002, 2003.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking like all of a sudden I didn't know there was gonna be like a couple guys coming at me. So the bottom line is, the one thing I did learn is that if you got a bunch of people coming at you, they grab your jersey, they have total control of you. If it's one-on-one, it's a little different. But when you have a few guys coming at you, yeah, you can get hurt pretty quick.
That's why you'd always take your jersey off so they couldn't grab you, right? Yeah.
It's just
or pull it over your head.
Part of it. One-on-one is fine, but
it's just you watch this clip and just in the corner you just see Barry taking his shirt off and no one else is. It's the most bizarre thing. But now I know why. So now it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, because if guys can get a hold of your jersey and pull it over your head, you're in trouble.
Well, especially if it's a couple of guys coming at you.
Yeah.
And that was the case. Could you imagine fighting in that brawl and me keeping my jersey on with every single guy in that team was pegging and wanting to kill me, basically? It would have been a different outcome. Totally different outcome.
How did you find those trips before that and after? How did you find the trips to Belfast? So that's quite a unique place to go and play. Because obviously you have to go on a plane. It's overnight usually, or you go there, you play, and you come straight back, sort of thing. It's a unique place to go and play.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it really was. I mean, especially with the history, right, that they have there, and their arena was a great arena too. Like Belfast had a really nice arena as well. So yeah, it was just so much fun just going into an environment like that you would see on the news and all the history that they had. So it was.
And they had really passionate fans too.
Very passionate fans, without a doubt.
When did you find out he'd almost caused another bench brawl in Belfast? Because I imagine you can't watch it back then on webcasts and things. So you would only find out either after the game or when he gets home.
Yeah, and it's funny because Barry really wouldn't elaborate a whole lot after road trips or after games. Like he said, it's almost like you turn the switch on when you enter the rink and you shut it off when you leave the rink. So yeah, he wouldn't say a whole bunch. And then sorry, our cat wants to join the interview here.
I have to lock the dogs in another room so they stop barking. And then obviously that was your last year in Nottingham. Did you always know that was going to be at what point did you know that was going to be your last year?
Well, Candace and I both discussed, and we kind of knew it was an end. We had to move on with our lives, and I think we were ready for the next chapter in our lives. I mean, obviously I couldn't play hockey forever, and we knew that at some point we didn't want to miss the boat on careers and what we were going to do and other opportunities that we were thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably could have stayed one more year. We kind of contemplated it, although we had already said to Paul Adey and Gary Moran that this would be, you know, Barry's last year. And then when it came down to the end of it, we kind of thought, you know, maybe one more year. But I think the decision was already made, and on both sides. And it was time. You know, we would see friends back home kind of moving on with their lives and starting their careers and stuff. And so we figured it's probably time. You know, one more year would have been nice, but we made the right decision, I think, at that time.
And obviously you've been back odd times since, and obviously I had a goodbye with the fan. Like, there's a game we put on YouTube not long ago where you're on commentary with Gary, actually, Barry.
Yeah.
So you came back for those things, and I guess it's at those moments that you realise that, like, the cult hero status you've established in Nottingham.
Yeah, I guess it's just always nice to come back. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing 3 years for us, and like you said, the fans are amazing. Like every time we came back, and they'd be yelling out Beza. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool feeling for sure.
Like even going back in, I think it was 2011, is when we flew back for David Clark's
testimonial.
Yeah, and you know, you think that you'd be long forgotten after so many years have gone by, and we were walking in city center and people were still asking him for his autograph and stuff, you know, which was pretty amazing. We weren't expecting that. And you know, his presence in the rink, people were chanting, you know, Barry's gonna get you. I don't know, you probably don't remember that era, but that all started, I think, 2002.
It was right after
the fans we got t-shirts made up of Barry's caricature, and it said Baz is going to get you, or Barry's going to get you, and they all chanted it. So it was kind of neat to experience that again, and the fans are still there, like amazing.
That's the thing though, in Nottingham, like you've built a very special relationship with Panthers fans. You hold a very special place in their hearts, and a lot of that is to do with, like, so when you go out to the fan events and things that because Gary works you hard off the ice. You make sure you're going to these fan events, you're building these relationships with the fans and stuff. How did you find that side of things?
Actually loved it. Actually relished it. Anytime you can go out and be a part of the town, be a part of the city, and help grow the sport for everybody, it's a win-win. It's just a win-win situation for everybody, right? So, I mean, you went out and did your part, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. Especially to go and you meet people, you meet interesting people, and you get new aspects of what they think about the game and what they think about the city. So
there's always people giving advice too.
Of course, there's always armchair fans. It's just like
armchair coaches.
It's just like when you're down in the bottom, you play the game, you see how fast it is. When you're up there, the game looks so easy.
Yeah. It's so easy and so slow. It's like, why did he do that? Why didn't he just do that?
Why didn't he pass the puck? Like, what's the matter with this guy?
Yeah, it's funny. It's nice to get in the trenches with the fans though, because it kind of opens your eyes how much the Panthers are part of the culture of that city. It's pretty amazing, actually, how far hockey has come in Nottingham, and the fans. I mean, I think we're third generation fans now, Panthers fans. Is that about right?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Amazing.
So, like, and if I have to ask you, like, you obviously both miss Nottingham. I can hear it the way you talk about the city. So, but to each of you, what do you miss the most about the city?
Well,
I know what I miss the most.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, it'd be the guys, the hockey. I mean, that's always number one, because you spend all your time with the guys, you know, the arena, everybody, just basically, and then ultimately the fans. I mean, just being there. And then I guess another part of it would be the culture and the lifestyle. And
I miss specifically city center and the flower vendors and the fresh fruit vendors on the street, and even
pubs. Don't forget the pubs.
and and I miss, even when we flew back for David's testimonial, like even city center at Christmas time. You know, all the lights and the big tree and
the Christmas market.
Yes,
the Christmas market. Like, I love that.
How do you beat that?
I miss that so much.
Stunning.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, that's this year they put it on. They didn't expect as many people to turn up as they did, so they had to cancel the rest of it. It lasted one day this year because of COVID and everything. So,
I know, what a shame.
I know. But they thought that this is the whole thing. Like, you know, common sense isn't all that common. Like, they thought people would come in moderation, but thousands of people just turned up on the first night.
Wow, because no one has anything to do. That's the problem, right?
And everyone's been stuck inside for all this time. You get this chance to go out. Of course, everyone's going to go out. So
exactly, yeah, no different here. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, it's too bad. What a shame. Hopefully next year.
Touch wood.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So what is it that you guys are up to these days?
Well, I'm a realtor, so when we knew we were leaving Nottingham for the last time, I actually registered for my real estate course when we were back in the UK, and as soon as we landed, I hit the ground running, and I was in school for several months getting my license, and so I'm going on my 18th year in real estate.
Oh wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I survived, and look, not only a few grays.
Unlike me, lost gray. And I'm, and I'm in oil and gas. I started oil and gas operating right out of hockey, and then I got into consulting to do pipeline abandonments and facility abandonments, and basically that's what I've been doing.
And now Bitcoin.
Yeah, and now mining Bitcoin for oil and gas.
It's interesting. Yeah, they mine for Bitcoin.
Okay.
So it's hard to explain, but anyway, that's kind of what he's into now.
And then one of the steadfast rules I've listened. I can't thank you both enough for your time. This has been absolutely delightful. I've loved every minute of this.
Thanks for having us.
But one of the steadfast rules I have is that this, and there have been plenty of laughs throughout this, but it has to end on a laugh. So I want from each of you, your funniest, like, it doesn't have to be just in Nottingham, it just has to be about ice hockey. So your funniest moment from being involved in ice hockey that you've either seen or been a part of.
Oh, there's so many, but I just
and I've got so many, but they're PG, so I can't even say them.
They're not PG.
Well, sorry, not PG. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I think one thing that we started in Nottingham, and I don't know if it's carried on with the team or not, but we used to do annual Halloween parties.
Yes, it's carried on.
Has it carried on?
Yes, I've seen pictures from them. They are sometimes very shocking.
So we started that, and we had a door prize. So basically everyone had to pay, £2 at entry. You had to dress up. You couldn't enter unless you were dressed up. And we had Hooters sponsor it. And so
lots of booze sponsored.
And we had Hooters sponsor, with gift certificates at the restaurant, whatever. Because the guys would always go there for wings all the time. So it was a no-brainer to get Hooters involved. And the great thing is we actually had Gary and Audrey show up, Paul Lady, everybody. So from management, from the top down, everybody showed up, and everybody dressed up to a T. Incredible Halloween costumes, like unreal. And so everyone voted on the best single person's costume and then the best couple, and they would get part of the door prize, and then of course sponsored by Hooters, and on it went. So that kind of started the tradition, and we have some pretty good stories that I probably won't mention. Yeah, we'll keep those private, but we had some pretty good stories. And then the next year we did it again. And I think that one was even crazier. And then we moved back to North America. And so I think someone took it over after that. So, obviously. Yeah. I'm sorry I can't elaborate on the funny stories, but we'll keep those ones quiet.
Well, from the pictures I've seen of more recent ones, there are costumes I refuse to tell people about after I saw the picture.
Probably, yeah.
When I stop recording, I will tell you what one guy dressed up as.
Okay, we do that. Yeah, we had some good ones. When we stop recording, we'll tell you a couple. We'll tell you a good Greg Hadden one.
So that's an off-ice story. So Barry, give me a funny off-ice story, an on-ice story from your time in ice hockey.
Funny awful. Actually, I'm trying to think of. God, there was so many. I'm just trying to think of Burke, but that's again they're off ice. The only.
What about your rookie?
A funny on ice story would be, but it's more. Do you remember Greg Burke? Have you talked to Burke?
I haven't talked to him. The name rings a bell.
So Burke, long story short, this
was a character.
This was in London. And the only reason I'm bringing this one up is because this was hilarious. Because McSorley would always come out and play shinny at the end. When practice was done, we'd go out and play shinny, and of course he'd want to be a part of the guys. And of course, he pulled a bunch of antics, so it was probably not the smartest thing he ever did was to come out and play shinny with the boys on days that we weren't practicing. But anyway, I just remember Burke basically just going up, and McSorley would come and he would just come and give you a huge body check, and you'd be playing shinny. So basically, Burke went right up and did the same thing, just crushed him. And he went flying. And you think, okay, he's going to lose his mind and he's going to freak right out. And he gets up and he starts laughing. He thought it was the best thing in the world. He thought it was the best thing in the world. He goes over and gives Burke a hug. I thought he was going to kill him. And he gives him a hug. So, yeah, that was probably one of the funniest things that I've ever seen, because he just ass over tea kettle. It was There's
a good NHL one, though, of your get called up.
He's talking London, though, or Nottingham.
No, he said any team, right?
Any time on ice. Any time on ice.
You got that? Go ahead.
Well, no, tell about your dinner. Your dinner with Paul Kariya.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You want a good NHL story?
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, we go out and eat, right? So
he got called up.
I got called up, so we go out and have a nice dinner. So when you go for dinner, obviously it's not going to be cheap. It's at a nice place. I'm playing in the minors, so the money's a little bit different, and I mean a little bit different, a lot different. So you go and you have your meal, and all of a sudden,
lots of drinks, fancy meals.
Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea, and all of a sudden everybody's throwing in their credit card. I'm going like, hey, what's going on here? And then Paul looks at me, and of course I'm getting nervous. I'm thinking, well, what they do is they check him in, and you get somebody, one of the waitresses, and they pull out every card. The last card that's in there has to pay for the whole meal for all the guys and drinks. So here's me, I'm kind of freaking out, and it was okay. Well,
can't afford that.
This might be a little out of my league. And I just remember Paul coming over to me, he goes, hey kid, don't worry about it. I got you covered.
They were playing a drinking game as well, and that was part of pulling the credit cards. And so he got really nervous, but as soon as Paul Kariya said, hey, don't worry about it, I got you covered, he got really cocky. Shocking.
I knew I didn't have to pay.
Be ordering more after that point then.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. There's lots. I don't know. They're not, we can't think of,
that's absolutely.
There's so many, I don't even know where we would begin, but.
That's absolutely. I cannot thank you both enough for your time today, and for all of the things you shared with us. This has been incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking us. It was nice. We enjoyed it. Thank you.
For what matters most this Christmas. Plan ahead for 2021 with the Nottingham Building Society to take a step forward with your future finances. Look for your nearest branch today at thenottingham.com/branches.